Good afternoon. It's late Friday in the wintertime, in the afternoon. And of course, this is Danny Kenyatta Davis, who is the host of the next 25 minutes of Hotline 21. And I'm eager to hear what you've got to say. I'm eager to talk with you. Why don't I jump right into it? It's been a long week, and I guess everybody have seen enough of the president this week because that's what television seemingly has been all about. Some people seem to think it's somewhat amusing. Other people seem to think it's somewhat ridiculous. I happen to fall into the category of thinking that it's somewhat ridiculous because I think that the United States of America, in terms of interactions and interrelationships with people, that we are in the worst shape as a nation that we've been in quite some time. I think this business of trying to be unified, be civilized, get along, if you will, and reach some mutual agreements about what we really want our country to be is becoming more and more elusive, more and more difficult to determine, more and more difficult to find. And I think it makes the world a more challenging place in which to live, as opposed to being able to say that it makes the world a better place in which to live. But let's go to the phone and take our first call and see what caller number one has to say.
Good
Caller.
evening, Dr. Sorry, Dr. Davis, U.S. Representative 7th District. I want to talk about we need to have the truth, before we go any further. And I've been doing a little research. 150 years before the Constitution was written, we had slavery in this country. And we was lied about in terms of the Constitution. In terms of revolutionized war, where we could have freedom of religion, free to do certain things. As I was reading on, that was a lie. The Revolutionary War was really fought over to keep slavery in this country. And when you think about it, it's always been pretty much the have and have not, where you have one group want to be superior in one way or other over the other. And when you're looking and seeing what's happening in this country right now, where whites are becoming a minority, they don't like it. And when it comes to the rules, I have said it many times before, they could ignore the rules, change the rules, and interpret the rules the way they want to. And that's what I look in terms of what happened in terms of the impeachment. Those senators took an oath. They didn't uphold their oath. Because why? Like I said before, there's three things they want to do in terms of the rules. It ain't had nothing to do in terms of the Constitution. It's all about keeping a certain group of people in power. So we have the very wealthy and the very poor. And that's all I wanted to say. And I hope Steve called in. Keep on calling in, Steve. You're sounding more and more healthy all the time. And that's all I really wanted to say.
All right. Well, thank you. And I think you've said it and you've put it out there. There is a little saying that I think somebody told me about some time ago that said, the history of the world, my sweet, has always been who eats and who get to eat. And so this notion of the haves and the have-nots certainly is not something that's new. I grew up in a family, and I wouldn't say they were overly religious, but there were certain principles that they discussed and taught. And we learned about the poor rich man when we'd be trying to figure out how could you be poor and rich at the same time. And I thank God, quite frankly, for my parents who didn't have a lot of what one would call formal education, but they read a lot. I mean, my father was an avid reader. And on Sunday mornings before going to church, he'd make sure he got up early enough to get dressed and ready, but also to have some time to read his Sunday school book before he got there. And so he'd be sitting on the porch reading his Sunday school book. Or at night, even when we didn't have electricity, we had coal oil lamps until I was 10 years old. And when the Rural Electrification Act was passed. Now, some people think that, hey, this is bad. You didn't have any electricity. But we weren't the only ones who didn't have electricity. People who lived in rural America, by and large, did not have electricity until the REA was passed. And that electrified rural America. So it wasn't that because we were black, we didn't have electricity. Whites, where I lived, didn't have electricity either if they lived in the rural areas. So just like they didn't have telephones either. And just like when they got telephones, they were party line telephones. So, but I noticed that both my mother and father read. And I think that caused me to want to read. And so I read and read and read. Let's go to the phone. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Connie Davis?
James,
Now,
I am good.
okay, I heard Joe talk about Donald Trump might be the richest man, but nobody came by nothing from God. Nobody came by nothing from God. Because Donald Trump might be rich, but nobody came by nothing from God. And God has the more power than anybody on earth.
Well, we certainly have been taught that concept, that principle, and that truism, and especially if you evaluate it a certain way, and if you look at it a certain way, even if you don't see it the way somebody else see it. But I read someplace about faith, and you know, it kind of said that faith was looking at things in a way that it may not be visible to the naked eye, but you've got enough faith to believe that it does in fact exist. And if it does exist, then the reality for you is that it is in existence. And so I agree with you when you say that, and I agree with anybody else who say it. So thanks, James, for calling. Our number is 312-738-1060. Caller, go right ahead.
Yes, Congressman, it's a great day to be on God's green earth. And first, before I get started, Joe, thank you. I like to hear that. Some days are good days, some days are bad. But thanks for asking about me. And I always talk about you and think about you. And I always listen to your comments. And you too, James. But listen, Joe, you said something very, very important. We need to get our young people together again. That's what the problem. They don't want no education. They don't want to go to school. There's no more labor. It's technology. So we got a lot of different fields that people could get into. But you don't go to school, how can you learn to do anything? You must go to school. Politicians, they went to school. You got to learn things. You can't get in office and become something like Donald Duck.
Well, let me
Donald Duck,
ask you,
yes,
how do we, I mean, even seemingly, especially with boys, they'll go to school some, but somewhere down the line, it seems that many of them lose interest in school and learning and what school produces. And seem like they lose the interest in it.
that's a wonderful question. And I look at that. I also thought about that. Your environment at home, on your way out the house, people in your neighborhoods, uh, at school. I think a lot of people say, for what? Why am I going? I'm not going to be able to conquer anything. So why am I doing this? They see the drug boys. They see the pretty little young women. They want something quick. And nothing goes quick. Only thing goes quick is your mind. Then you know you lost it. But listen, we need people to get more involved with people. See, we live in a society now. They walk around a dead person. They would step over the dead person. You see, I never heard gunshots when I was young, except on New Year's Eve. But now it's a common thing. So it's a different beast we live in. But listen, we got to change. And listen, people like us, Joe, James, and also your congressman, we got to pull people up. That's the only thing to do. Or God got to come in, because if not, we're going to destroy this culture of ours. A black person becoming nothing. Nothing. And doesn't make no sense. We need us black people. Hell, they don't even want to vote. Now, that's something I just don't understand. But they love to get around and talk. But they won't go and vote. So, listen, we need more people such as you, Congressman. What would we have done on a Friday night without you? This is a wonderful thing we have. But listen, Joe, I want to hold the show. But I'm getting it better, Joe. So you keep on calling so I can listen to y'all. And someday I don't call, something I'm not there. I'm always listening. Let me get out there so I get your response, and thanks for taking the call.
Well, let me tell you, you guys make me want to be here every day. I be hoping on a Friday that we finish up our work in Washington in time for me to get here, to hear your analysis and hear what you're thinking and what you're saying. And that perks me up. So thanks again for calling, and we'll go right back to the phone. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. And thank you so much for accepting my call. I just love you, Danny.
Thank you so very much, and it is a pleasure.
This is Miss Griffin from the South Side. I would love to live a little bit longer to see our school system change. and become not the local school council, that's a farce. We need to be what we used to have, PTA, to get the families involved. It begins in the home. People cannot continue to be what they can't see. We got too much promotion going on about the killing and the shoot. We need to be more sophisticated than that.
Well, how do we inject early enough this notion? I remember no special deal and all of that anything, but it would seem to me that there was hope
Yes.
that people had, you know, and you'd feel emotionally connected that listening to the stuff and talking about it, that somehow or another it was going to make a difference in your life. And I don't know how much of that we experience now. Uh, is there a way to get it back?
Yes, it is. We need to bring back, because when we vote years ago, by the time we got in third grade, we was voting for our local school. We had PTA, and then we would see how the machines be working, because they had the machines back there in the day. Okay, this is 83-year-old lady talking. We honored that. We went out and we walked along with the elected officials talking to people about voting, registering, so we can get back to those things. These kids are missing all of these things that's good and profitable, not this other junk that's being fed to them. Our kids are getting smarter and smarter.
Well, I'm hoping that we're going to dig in. I mean, I watched the president's speech on Tuesday night, and I was so disappointed in so many different ways. And I'm hoping that our people will just know that power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. I've been talking about Frederick Douglass all week, even at some of the hearings that I've been in terms of committee processes, because we get bogged down saying what we'd want, but when it comes time to pay for it, we can never, reach the point of agreement on that. But keep calling, keep
And thank you
viewing.
for being there for us, and God bless you, and continue on with the great work that you're doing for this whole city, not just for your area, but for this whole city. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I mean, that really makes me feel good. I mean, just the fact that somebody acknowledges the work that you attempt to do, what you're trying to accomplish. And when you're out and when people campaign and all that stuff, some of the stuff that I hear is some of the most ridiculous. Matter of fact, I heard one of my opponents said that Danny Davis is not engaged with the community, that he sits in his office and is aloof from what is going on. And a person called me and said, how could that person say that? And I said, well, I guess people can say whatever they want to say. This is America. It's a free country. 312-738-1060. We are celebrating African American History Month, and we're putting together our program. And we're going to honor people, not necessarily just the national leaders, but we're going to honor people who lived and were leadership in public housing. People like Miss Hortensia Randolph, who used to be the head of all the groups that lived in public housing, their Central Advisory Council. We're going to honor people like Miss Devera Beverly, who used to live not far from where we're located, right here in the Obla development. We're going to honor people like Miss Earlene Lindsay, who lived in Henry Horner. We're going to honor people like Miss Mamie Bones, who was the leader of the group. We're going to honor Miss Mary Baldwin, who was the resident council president at Rockwell. And the reason I decided that we would honor these people is because leadership is where you find it. And you don't have to have a great big title. You don't have to be president of the United States. You don't have to be mayor of the city of Chicago. You can be whatever you be, and you can be good at it, and you can be the best. So if you can't be the governor of Illinois, that's all right. You don't have to be the governor of Illinois to provide leadership. You don't have to be a bishop to provide leadership. Just be who you are. My mother was a leader, and she taught us, if you can't be a pine at the top of the hill, be a scrub in the valley, but be the best little scrub by the side of the rill. If you can't be a highway, she'd say, just be a trail. If you can't be the moon, be a star. It's not by size that you win or fail, but be the best. Be the best of whatever you are. So in honor of African American History Month, Black History Month, I started off by saying, thank you, Maisie Lee Davis. Thank you, Grandma Maddie Davis. Thank you, Grandma Ceola Davis. Thank you all. And to all of you, our callers and viewers, thank you for making Friday afternoons as interesting as you make them for me. May the good Lord bless and keep you, and I hope to see you next week.